Hello, and congratulations to everyone on a job well done. It was a real pleasure working on An Unsuitable Attachment with all of you, and playing the role of Penelope was a lot of fun. This was my first exposure to the work of Barbara Pym, which I found to be really lovely and charming and interesting, and would definitely be interested in reading more of her work.
Either you are the consummate actor or there is something you have buried from your deep, dark past that you were able to conjure up. So what gives? What was it that enabled you to convey the Rupert that we've all come to detest and hate?
You might be surprised to know that dispassionate, humorless prig is not really that far from my real character. It's probably closer to my other theatrical roles with you, which involved screaming ghosts and bullying policemen. So this one was less of a stretch, I think.
Did you use your own courtship as a model?
I'll just start with saying that I actually did rob the cradle, but yeah, I mean, he's pretty cute, so can't really help yourself.
I absolutely fell back to our courtship.
Wow.
In preparing for this role, I did, and we had a lot of fun with it.
To have to look at each other for the first time. Oh, you're falling in love in this scene. It was
It
nice.
brought me right back to the Red Lion on Bleecker Street.
There's a wonderful take of the two of them kissing, and their two girls are laughing uproariously.
If at some point you want to release the outtakes, there is one word that Adam, 12, 13 times, indices. No, Adam, indices. Indices. Indices, Adam.
We've now had the pleasure of seeing your fantastic range in our two video plays. And you went from the imperious Miss Doggett to the warm, caring Sofia. How did you prepare for Sofia?
That Doggett is me all from the beginning to the end. No. What I've found since I was young is when I have to play a part, I really feel like I pull from someone in my life. So I'm more of an imitator, not in voice, but in actions and mannerisms. And I definitely have a Sofia in my life. And I definitely have a Doggett in my life. Doing something with my hair or wearing a certain outfit, of course, helps. And watch a lot of The Crown.
Fred and I deeply appreciate not only the quality of your narration, but how timely and how responsive you were to the inevitable changes that would occur because scenes shifted slightly and then the narration had to match that shift in the scene. So thank you for that. Thank you also for coming up with the opening music, which was perfect. And I think the way Fred positioned I Could Write a Book to come up when An Unsuitable Attachment appeared was brilliant. And generally, thank you for being responsive to my innumerable email. In the course of thinking about musical selections, which we may talk about a little bit later, I listened to Desert Island Discs. And I guess I just had not remembered Barbara's voice. And I was struck by how close her voice and your voice are, at least to the untutored American ear. Are we right, or are we just thinking that all Brits sound alike?
Thinking about it, I shouldn't sound at all like Barbara Pym because obviously I'm Welsh and she was very, very English. But if I'm doing something like that, I do tend to go into what I call my Oxford accent, which of course I learned at St. Hilda's, where Barbara was also an undergraduate. So is it possible that there's a St. Hilda's accent that she and I both have, or a timbre of voice intended for replying to your tutor or reading your essay?
No one said he's the perfect Mervin because he is Mervin, but he is so perfect because he can play Mervin.
Nice try.
It was a credit to your acting skills, Charles.
Right. Yes, I'm sure.
Did you find the inner Mervin from your reading of Pym?
Having read the novels for so long and having an appreciation for her understanding of the characters that she was trying to project, people maybe she had models in her own life. That's the most of it. But I did work in the graduate library, in the Department of Rare Books at the University of Michigan Library a number of years ago. And there were all kinds of odd people. And in fact, the reason I know Barbara Pym in the first place is because when I left there in 1984, one of the librarians gave me a Barbara Pym book to read. And I'm not sure what it was. I can't remember at this point. But he said, oh, and it's full of libraries and it's English. It's got these little old ladies and these clergymen. You just love it. And I thought, it sounds awful. For some reason, I picked it up, I started reading it, and then I was hooked. So in those years, all of the novels were being reissued and the posthumous things were appearing. And so I could go to the bookstore and there'd always be a new and different Barbara Pym for me to find and read. And one day that stopped happening. So I started recycling them. So I wouldn't necessarily say that there's a particular person. It's more of an attitude that the person has. And I think his personal life background informs it much more than the librarian aspect of it.
You took on a different voice for Robina. What got into you? What prompted you to do that?
I think I was sort of channeling what I imagined Esther Clovis might have sounded like, because I got the impression that Robina was quite forceful. She was obviously a cultured woman. So, and I'm really awful at doing accents generally, but I can do posh women. So I sort of tried to put on the fairly posh, forceful woman's accent. So I'm glad it worked. I have a question for you, Dan, for you and Fred. You just mentioned the music. You mentioned that you chose some pieces from Desert Island Discs. But the rest of the music, it obviously wasn't random. Could you explain how you went about choosing it?
I will say, back to Desert Island Discs for a minute, I was influenced a little bit by Barbara's opening statement that she deliberately didn't choose any pop music of the time because those songs would stay in her head and they would be with her. So Desert Island Discs was not only useful in the context of the songs that we chose, but also just to inform our feeling about the music. And then I just took a nostalgic trip down memory lane. I went on YouTube and I looked at top hits in the 60s in the UK, US, and then some songs just seemed to fit better than others.
A lot of the songs were your choices. And I was sending Dan 2 episodes at a time. And a lot of times his comments were just, music is perfect. Which is, of course, he chose it. After we put them on YouTube, the whole thing got blocked because we found out that Can't Buy Me Love was supposed to be in the St. Basil's Bazaar sequence. They couldn't use that. So I had to take the thing out and re-edit it and put in another song. And then I reloaded it to YouTube again. And then it turned out another song was blocked, A Fever by Peggy Lee. And we chose, let's just put classical music in those because nobody's going to block that. Nobody cares. And so that's what we went for. We tried to make it so that they wouldn't be too on the nose where it's so obvious what's happening. But it's when you look back, oh, that really fits that sequence really well. And the great thing about music also is that you put it on underneath and it drowns out a lot of the ambient noise that's in some of the tapes. So it's like I like to have music playing just so it looks like we're trying to make a comment and really we're just trying to drown out the noise.
I was also peppering you with emails about London geography and did I get these photos right that we were choosing. You were most gracious in both in your responsiveness and the nuance that you added. How did you conjure up that marvelous outfit and what was that wonderful background from which you were seeking your quince jelly?
Yes, well, as far as the clergyman's shirt went, I said to my wife, Jeannie, how on earth am I going to dress up as a clergyman? She said, well, don't you own a shirt that has a fixed white collar. She said, if you put it on back to front, and I'll button it up for you from behind, then you'll look just like a clergyman. And then I put on my most sober pinstripe suit, and it worked. In fact, after we'd done our shoot, I went for a walk around the town and was very disappointed not to meet any other clergymen. As for the setting, it's in our drawing room where I'm sitting now.
How did you convey so effectively Miss Grimes, especially that laugh at the end?
It was just fun to play the gossip. So much fun.
It was so much fun that you gave me like 10 takes of each scene, as I recall. You really enjoyed it.
Actually, Miss Killigrew, I felt, was more like the kind of person who was trying to say she wasn't a gossip, whereas Miss Grimes was just all in. She was owning who she was. So they were different characters, even though they were both gossips.
Fred captured in slow motion 2 wonderful moments in your scene. What prompted you to use those wonderful, very expressive expressions?
Well, it's either my hitherto undiscovered acting talent or years of practice. Take which answer you prefer.
Practice on what?
Practice on you, of course.
Me.
All right, well, that's a perfect segue to Martin. Martin, what was there a figure in your history that helped you to channel Gervais?
There must be dozens. Oh, dons, school teachers, dons, all that sort of thing, right through to the late 60s, I would say. There were lots of those around.
Anne planted an Easter egg with her reading of An Unsuitable Attachment. Now, I don't have to ask who you channeled, Anne.
The narcissist in me. I was so grateful to have a part, so very grateful that I would have done anything. I would have channeled anyone. So thank you for including me. Another thing, I'm so taken with the illusion. Like I know you weren't together, any of you, but I really don't believe it. I think you were. It just worked so smoothly.
Especially the kiss. I mean, it was amazing.
Oh, the wedding! I forgot the wedding.
Oh, the wedding pictures. A brilliant move. I think Adam. I was fully prepared to give Adam credit, but he said it was the director who. And I hope everybody recognized those were real wedding pictures.
One pandemic in 14 years. I think the age definitely showed versus our wedding picture.
But going back to Anne, I think that may have been my favorite part of the whole thing was your response to the fighting. We were doubling over. It was fantastic.
Be aware that the voices while she's listening are Charles and Adam. I kept dubbing them over and over again. So that is them arguing. It's just saying the same line over and over. But if you keep overlapping them, you can't really tell at the same.
Most of you may not know this, but Anne does we did back in the day of a local silly Shakespeare production. And Anne was famous, very famous for her death scenes.
My death scenes, yes.
Were fabulous. People came to see our show just to see Anne die.
The organization had to be just from Dan and Fred for getting us all on board. The text messages, emails, did you had like a big whiteboard or how did you do it?
We did a lot of that for sure.
I mean, you did all the original, getting the script together, the original script, and then you were doing most of the casting. You would ask me, to an annoying degree, well, like this person or that person. I said, yeah, whatever. But I found this, as opposed to Crampton Honda, it was easier because I did it before. I just split every episode up into, I put two together. This would be these two episodes. And every time I got a video, I just threw it into that folder or that folder. And it turned out so much easier than in Crampton Haunted, where I just had all the clips all over the place. And I had to figure out, where does this clip go and where does that one go? Organizationally, it wasn't that hard because we went through it before and we realized how hard it was. So then it wasn't that hard this time. We figured it out. I mean, once everybody sends the stuff in, it actually becomes kind of fun trying to put a puzzle together, because there are moments that fit together perfectly and others that sort of like, well, I can't quite get that, but then you sort of like fool around with it or slow things down a little and it sort of comes together. But it's that kind of work is the fun part. Actually, I don't know if anybody's ever edited something, but you start editing something and the next thing you know, you turn around and 5 hours have gone by and you didn't even notice it because you get so wrapped up in what you're trying to do. Sometimes you worry because you notice that, as you say, it's in Italy, but there's snow outside. But then, as you say, beards come and go. I did notice at one point, Joe's performance, his framing was so good that I didn't notice till near the end that he had his hair all tied up in the back.
You've now had the experience of editing and directing two Tim plays, Crampton Haunted and Unsuitable Attachment. Which of them do you think worked better and why?
I feel like this one worked better, but I just feel it's because of just the experience of everybody working with the camera before. I know in Crampton Haunted, a lot of times I had to keep flipping the frames of people because they're both looking the same direction. And for some reason this time, I didn't have to do it that often. There were a couple of times where I had to flip it. There was one scene with Adam near the end where you'll notice all the books behind him, the words are backwards because I had to flip his when he was talking to Charles. They were both looking in the same direction, so I had to flip his vision a little. But I have a feeling that I think we might have just we cut better scenes out of, I don't know why, maybe, because we did the first one, we just felt more of a sense of the flow, whereas in Crampton Haunted, I think we were trying to preserve a lot more, of the story. But I felt like this one moved better. But because I started looking at the original one, and I thought some of this is okay, and a lot of it was funny, but I felt like some of the scenes might have been too long or something. And I think this one, I think we cut them down a little more to make them move faster. Whenever you're working on anything, the last thing you did is always the best thing you did. So when you look back, you always hope you're improving.
These card indexes and things, or should one say indices? These card indexes and things, or should one say indices? Or should one say indices? Indices. Or should one say...
Allow me to introduce...
Oh, God. These card indexes and things. Or should one say indices? Indices. Goodbye, darling. I wish I was coming too. Do take care of yourself.